The transmission came through the Deep Space Monitoring Station at Luna Base during the graveyard shift, when most of the skeleton crew was half asleep over their coffee. Lieutenant Sarah Chen was reviewing routine stellar drift calculations when the quantum communicator suddenly blazed to life with an emergency frequency she'd never heard before. This is First Speaker Zeth Kara of the Corellian Confederacy, the voice crackled through the universal translator, tinged with what could only be described as desperation. We are transmitting on all known frequencies, pleading for immediate assistance. Our worlds are under siege by the Vorthak Dominion. We have less than 72 standard hours before our final defenses collapse. Sarah nearly dropped her coffee mug. First contact protocols kicked in immediately, but this wasn't the peaceful greeting humanity had imagined for decades. This was a distress call from a dying civilization. Please, the alien voice continued, any species capable of faster-than-light travel, any civilization with military capability, we offer everything we have in exchange for aid. Our children are dying. Our worlds burn. We have exhausted all diplomatic channels. The Vorthak show no mercy. The transmission cut to static. Sarah's hands flew across her console, recording every bit of data, cross-referencing stellar coordinates, and immediately patching through to Admiral Harrison Webb at Terra Command. Within minutes, every major government on Earth was in emergency session. The response was unlike anything in human history. Admiral Webb stood before the assembled fleet commanders in the war room deep beneath the Swiss Alps. Holographic displays showed the Corellian star system, 847 light-years from Earth, where an entire civilization hung in the balance. The tactical briefing had been going for 6 hours, and the room hummed with barely contained energy. Ladies and gentlemen, Webb began, his weathered face grave, we've spent the last century building our fleet because we knew this day would come. We knew that in a galaxy full of life, not all of it would be friendly. We prepared for the day when humanity would need to defend itself. He paused, letting his words sink in. Today, we're not defending ourselves. Today, we're defending someone else. The Corellian Confederacy has 47 billion souls across 12 worlds. They're herbivorous, peaceful, and according to their own admission, completely unprepared for the level of violence the Vorthak Dominion has brought to their doorstep. Captain Maria Santos of the UES Retribution raised her hand. Sir, what do we know about the Vorthak? Webb activated another holographic display. The image showed a creature that looked like a cross between a praying mantis and a shark, standing nearly 8 feet tall with serrated claws and multiple rows of teeth visible in its elongated skull. The Vorthak are what we've classified as a predator species, Webb explained. They've conquered 17 star systems in the past 2 centuries. They don't negotiate, they don't take prisoners, and they don't leave survivors. They strip worlds of all biological matter and move on. According to Corellian intelligence, they're essentially space locusts with starships. The room fell silent. Every person present understood the implications. The Corellians have been fighting for 8 months, Webb continued. They've lost 6 worlds already. Their military doctrine is based on defensive positions and what they call dignity warfare. Essentially, they try to minimize casualties on both sides. Against the Vorthak, this approach has been inadequate. Colonel James Rodriguez of the Luna Marine Corps leaned forward. What are our orders, sir? Webb's expression hardened. As of 2 hours ago, President Martinez has authorized the deployment of the entire Terran defense fleet. Not just the patrol ships, not just the cruisers. Everything. Every dreadnought, every carrier, every destroyer we've built in the past 50 years. We're taking the entire Deathworlder fleet to war. The term Deathworlder had been coined by xenobiologists to describe Earth's unique position in the galaxy. Most inhabited worlds were relatively peaceful places where evolution had favored cooperation over competition. Earth was different. Earth was a planet where life had spent billions of years trying to kill other life in increasingly creative ways. Humans were the product of that endless arms race. The Corellians called us Deathworlders in their transmission, Webb said with something that might have been a smile. They have no idea what that actually means. The fleet assembled at the Titan shipyards was a sight that would have terrified any human politician 50 years earlier. Humanity had built weapons of war that dwarfed anything in their historical experience. The flagship, UES Vengeance, was a kilometer-long dreadnought bristling with railguns, plasma cannons, and enough nuclear warheads to sterilize a planet. Around it, 300 other ships formed the largest military force in human history. Captain Elena Vasquez stood on the bridge of the Vengeance, watching the final ships take their positions. As the fleet commander, she would lead humanity's first interstellar war. The weight of that responsibility pressed down on her shoulders like a physical force. "All ships report ready, ma'am," reported her communications officer, Lieutenant Commander Park. "Thank you, Mr. Park. Navigation, plot our course for the Corellian system. Maximum burn." The jump to hyperspace was nothing like the science fiction movies had suggested. There was no dramatic streaking of stars, no sense of movement. One moment they were in Earth's solar system, the next they were hurtling through the twisted spacetime of hyperspace at speeds that would have been impossible in normal space. The journey would take 6 days at maximum velocity. 6 days to travel nearly 1,000 light-years. 6 days to reach a war that had been raging for months. As they traveled, the fleet received updated intelligence from the Corellian Confederacy. The situation was deteriorating rapidly. The Vortak had broken through the outer defensive perimeter and were advancing on the core worlds. Military casualties were in the hundreds of millions. Civilian casualties were beyond counting. "Captain," said her intelligence officer, Commander Sarah Mitchell, "we're getting reports that the Vortak are using what the Corellians call terror tactics. They're specifically targeting civilian populations, destroying cultural sites, and broadcasting the executions on all frequencies." Vasquez felt her jaw tighten. "Psychological warfare." "Yes, ma'am. They're trying to break Corellian morale before the final assault. They picked the wrong galaxy to try that tactic in." The bridge crew exchanged glances. They'd all studied the same histories, knew the same stories. Humanity had invented psychological warfare, had perfected it across millennia of conflict. The Vortak were about to learn what it meant to fight a species that had survived ice ages, asteroid impacts, and 2,000 years of constant warfare. The Corellian homeworld of Corellis Prime was a garden world, covered in vast forests and crystal-clear oceans. Or it had been. When the human fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the system, they found a world under siege. Vortak ships surrounded the planet like a swarm of metallic wasps, their hulls dark and angular, designed to inspire fear. Long-range sensors showed massive impact craters where once great cities had stood. The orbital defense platforms had been reduced to debris fields. "My God," whispered the sensor officer. "The entire fourth planet is gone." Vasquez looked at the tactical display. Where the fourth planet should have been, there was nothing but an asteroid field. The Vortak had literally consumed an entire world. "Captain," came a transmission from the surface, "this is First Speaker Zethkara. We cannot believe you have come. Your fleet is larger than we expected." The holographic image showed a being that looked like a cross between a deer and a human, with large, gentle eyes and golden fur. Despite everything, Zethkara radiated a dignity that reminded Vasquez of the diplomatic corps. "First Speaker," Vasquez replied, "I am Captain Elena Vasquez of the United Earthship Vengeance. We have come to assist your people." "Captain Vasquez, I must warn you. The Vortak fleet is massive. They have over 800 ships of various sizes. Our own fleet was completely destroyed 12 hours ago. We have nothing left to offer in this fight." Vasquez smiled, and there was something predatory in that expression. "First Speaker, you called us Deathworlders. You have no idea what that means, do you? We know only that your world is classified as a high-gravity, high-radiation world with an unusually violent ecosystem. We assumed this meant you were merely more robust than other species. First Speaker, let me explain something about humans. We are not just survivors. We are apex predators. Every human aboard these ships is descended from billions of years of evolution where the only rule was kill or be killed. We have turned warfare into an art form. We have weapons that can crack planets and strategies that can topple empires. The Vorthak are about to learn what it means to fight a species that conquered its own world before it reached the stars. The transmission fell silent for a moment. Then, in a voice filled with something that might have been hope, Zefkara said, "What do you need from us? Stay out of our way." The Battle of Karalis Prime began at 0600 hours, ship time. The Vorthak had been expecting the arrival of reinforcements. The Karelian Confederacy had allies among the peaceful species of the galaxy. What they hadn't expected was the arrival of a species that had spent its entire evolutionary history perfecting the art of violence. The human fleet moved in perfect formation, their ships dark and angular, designed not for intimidation but for efficiency. The Vorthak swarm moved to intercept, their 800 ships forming a massive wall of firepower. "All ships, this is Captain Vasquez. Remember your training. Remember why we're here. These things have slaughtered billions of innocent people. They've destroyed entire worlds. They think they're the ultimate predators." She paused, letting her words sink in across the fleet. "They've never met humans before. Let's show them what real predators look like." The Vorthak opened fire first, their weapons systems crude but effective. Plasma bolts and kinetic projectiles filled the space between the fleets. The human shields held advanced energy barriers that had been designed to withstand the worst that human imagination could devise. Then the humans returned fire. The difference was immediately apparent. Where the Vorthak used brute force, the humans used precision. Railguns accelerated projectiles to significant fractions of the speed of light. Plasma cannons fired coherent beams that could slice through ship hulls like paper. Nuclear warheads detonated in carefully calculated patterns that maximized damage while minimizing collateral effects. But it was the tactics that truly set the humans apart. The Vorthak fought like a swarm, each ship operating independently, relying on numbers and aggression. The humans fought like a single organism, each ship perfectly coordinated with every other ship in the fleet. "Target their command vessels," Vasquez ordered. "Mr. Park, patch me through to the fleet. All ships, execute Pattern 7. Focus fire on the largest vessels. We're going to cut the head off the snake." The human fleet moved like a school of fish, each ship perfectly positioned to maximize firepower while minimizing exposure. The Vorthak, despite their numerical advantage, found themselves outmaneuvered at every turn. Within the first hour, the humans had destroyed over 100 Vorthak ships while losing only 3 of their own. The Vorthak began to adapt, their commanders recognizing that they were facing something they'd never encountered before. "Captain," reported the tactical officer, "the Vorthak are changing formation. They're trying to encircle us." Vasquez studied the tactical display. The Vorthak were attempting to use their numerical advantage to surround the human fleet, forcing them to fight on multiple fronts simultaneously. It was a sound strategy that had probably worked against the Karelians and other peaceful species. "Mr. Rodriguez," she called to the Marine commander, "how are our boarding parties?" "Locked and loaded, ma'am. Just give the word." Vasquez smiled. The Vorthak were thinking like conquerors, trying to destroy the human fleet through attrition. They had no idea they were fighting a species that had invented the concept of total war. "All ships, this is Captain Vasquez. Execute Operation Nightmare." Operation Nightmare was a human military doctrine that had been theoretical until this moment. Instead of fighting a defensive battle, the human fleet would split into dozens of smaller groups, each one designed to penetrate deep into enemy territory and cause maximum chaos. The Vorthak watched in confusion as the human fleet suddenly scattered, their tight formation dissolving into what appeared to be a chaotic retreat. Then the smaller human groups struck. Squad after squad of human ships punched through the Vorthak lines, their weapons systems targeting not just the enemy ships but their support infrastructure. Fuel depots exploded. Command ships found themselves isolated and vulnerable. Supply lines were severed with surgical precision. The Vorthak had never faced an enemy that fought this way. They were accustomed to facing opponents who valued honor and dignity, who fought according to recognized rules of engagement. The humans fought to win, and they fought dirty. "Captain," reported the communications officer, "we're intercepting Vorthak communications. They're calling for reinforcements." Vasquez laughed, a sound that held no humor. Too late for that. The battle raged for 18 hours. When it was over, the space around Corrales Prime was littered with the wreckage of 700 Vorthack ships. The human fleet had lost 27 vessels, but they had achieved something unprecedented, the complete destruction of a Vorthack fleet. But the victory came with a sobering realization. The Vorthack force at Corrales Prime had been just one fleet out of many. Intelligence reports suggested that the Dominion had over 50 similar fleets spread across their territory. First speaker, Vasquez said as she addressed the Corellian leadership, "We've driven them from your system, but this is just the beginning. The Vorthack will return, and they'll bring more ships next time." Zethkaris' image flickered on the screen, the alien's large eyes filled with gratitude and terror in equal measure. "Captain Vasquez, what you have done here, we have never seen anything like it. The Vorthack have terrorized this sector of the galaxy for centuries. No one has ever defeated them so completely." "We're not done yet," Vasquez replied. "The only way to stop the Vorthack is to end their ability to wage war. We're going to their home system." "But Captain," Zethkara protested, "the Vorthack home system is defended by their entire fleet. Thousands of ships. It would be suicide." Vasquez looked at her bridge crew, saw the same determination reflected in every face. "First speaker, you still don't understand what we are. We're not just here to save your people. We're here to make sure the Vorthack never threaten anyone again. That's what humans do. We don't just fight wars. We end them." The human fleet spent 2 weeks in the Corellian system, taking on supplies and conducting repairs. During this time, they received intelligence briefings that painted a grim picture of the galaxy beyond. The Vorthack Dominion controlled over 40 star systems, each one stripped of life and converted into a resource extraction facility. "They're not just conquerors," reported Commander Mitchell during a fleet briefing. "They're an extinction event. Every world they've taken has been completely sterilized. No survivors, no remnants of the original civilizations. They consume everything and move on." The fleet had also received reinforcements. Not from Earth, the journey would take too long, but from the Corellian Confederacy itself. While the Corellians were not warriors, they had extensive knowledge of Vorthack tactics and technology. More importantly, they had detailed maps of the Dominion's territory. "The Vorthack home system is called Vorthaith," explained Corellian military coordinator Therian during a joint tactical briefing. "It's a red dwarf system with 12 planets, all of them heavily industrialized. Our estimates suggest they have at least 3,000 ships based there at any given time." The human officers exchanged glances. 3,000 ships against 300. The odds were worse than anyone had anticipated. Coordinator Therian asked Captain Santos, "What do we know about their planetary defenses?" "Extensive. Each planet has orbital weapons platforms, surface-to-space missiles, and what our scouts have described as planet killers, weapons capable of destroying entire fleets with a single shot." The briefing room fell silent. Everyone present understood the implications. They were planning to assault a fortress that had never been successfully attacked in the entire history of the Vorthack Dominion. "There's something else," Therian continued. "The Vorthack have been accelerating their expansion. Intelligence suggests they're planning to launch simultaneous attacks on 12 different star systems within the next 6 months. If they succeed, they'll have direct access to the core worlds of the Galactic Commerce Council." Captain Vasquez leaned forward. "How many people are we talking about?" 700 billion souls across 47 worlds. The number hung in the air like a physical weight. 700 billion people who would die if the Vorthack expansion continued. "Then we stop them," Vasquez said simply. "We go to their home system, and we end this once and for all." "Captain," protested Therian, "you're talking about a suicide mission. No force in galactic history has ever successfully assaulted a heavily defended home system." Vasquez smiled, and there was something cold in her expression. "Coordinator, you're thinking like a civilized being. The Vorthack are about to learn what it means to fight an uncivilized species." The journey to the Vorthack home system took 4 days through hyperspace. During the trip, the human fleet underwent a transformation that would have been impossible for any other species. They weren't just preparing for battle, they were preparing for the systematic destruction of an entire civilization. All department heads, report to the war room, Vasquez announced over the ship's intercom. The war room aboard the Vengeance was a massive chamber filled with holographic displays showing every aspect of the upcoming battle. Ladies and gentlemen, Vasquez began, we're about to attempt something that has never been done before. We're going to assault a fortified home system with the intention of completely destroying the enemy's ability to wage war. She activated the main display, showing a detailed map of the Vortex system. Intelligence has identified 12 planets, 47 major orbital installations, and an estimated 3,000 ships. Under normal circumstances, this would be an impossible task. But these are not normal circumstances, continued Colonel Rodriguez. We're not here to conquer territory or negotiate terms. We're here to end the Vortex Dominion as a threat to galactic peace. The plan they outlined was unlike anything in the history of warfare. Instead of engaging the enemy fleet directly, the humans would split their forces into multiple groups, each with a specific target. One group would target the orbital defense platforms. Another would focus on the industrial facilities. A third would engage the enemy fleet. But the most controversial part of the plan involved the planet killers. Captain, asked Commander Park, are we really going to use nuclear weapons against planetary targets? Vasquez looked at her communications officer, seeing the moral struggle in his eyes. Mr. Park, the Vortex have committed genocide against 17 different species. They've killed hundreds of billions of people. They've destroyed entire worlds. This isn't about revenge, it's about making sure they never have the capability to do it again. But surely there must be civilians, non-combatants. There are no civilians in the Vortex Dominion, interrupted Commander Mitchell. Intelligence reports confirm that their entire society is organized around warfare. Every adult Vortex is either a soldier or a weapons manufacturer. They don't have families as we understand them, they have breeding programs designed to produce more soldiers. The moral weight of what they were planning settled over the room like a shroud. They were preparing to commit genocide against a species that had itself committed genocide multiple times over. I know what you're all thinking, Vasquez said quietly. I know this goes against everything we believe about the value of life. But sometimes, the only way to stop a monster is to become a monster yourself. She paused, letting her words sink in. The Vortex have made their choice. They've chosen to be an extinction event. We're going to make sure they become extinct instead. The human fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Vortex system in perfect formation. The sight that greeted them was unlike anything they had ever seen. The entire system was a fortress, with weapons platforms scattered throughout the asteroid belt and massive defensive installations orbiting every planet. My God, whispered the sensor officer. There are over 4,000 ships in this system. The Vortex response was immediate and overwhelming. Alarm klaxons sounded throughout the system as the defending fleet began to move. But the humans had anticipated this. All ships, execute Operation Armageddon, Vasquez ordered. The human fleet scattered like a breaking wave, each group heading for its assigned target. The Vortex, expecting a conventional assault, moved to intercept the largest group of human ships. They had no idea that this was exactly what the humans wanted. The first phase of the battle was a nightmare of destruction. Human ships, outnumbered 15-1, fought with a desperation and savagery that shocked even the Vortex. Ships rammed into enemy vessels when their weapons failed. Boarding parties fought hand-to-hand combat in the corridors of enemy ships. Nuclear weapons detonated in close proximity, taking out multiple ships at once. Captain, reported the tactical officer, Groups 7 and 9 have reached their targets. They're beginning bombardment of the industrial complexes. On the tactical display, Vasquez watched as entire planets began to burn. The humans weren't just targeting military installations, they were systematically destroying the Vortex's ability to build new ships, manufacture weapons, and support their war machine. Group 3 reports successful penetration of the orbital defense perimeter, came another report. They're engaging the planet killers. The planet killers were massive weapons platforms, each one capable of destroying an entire fleet with a single shot. The humans had identified them as the primary threat to any assault on the system. Taking them out required a level of precision and coordination that would have been impossible for any other species. "Captain," came a transmission from Captain Santos aboard the Retribution, "we've taken heavy casualties, but we've destroyed 3 of the planet killers. The 4th one it's firing." The weapon that lit up the tactical display was unlike anything in human experience. A coherent beam of energy that could have powered a small city was directed at the human fleet. It struck the destroyer Manchester, and the ship simply ceased to exist, converted to component atoms in a fraction of a second. "All ships, focus fire on the remaining planet killers," Vasquez ordered. "Use everything we have." The battle raged for 6 hours. When it was over, the humans had achieved the impossible. They had destroyed or disabled every major defensive installation in the system. The Vortac fleet, despite its numerical advantage, had been scattered and decimated. But the cost had been enormous. The human fleet had lost over 100 ships, including 2 of their precious dreadnoughts. Nearly 40,000 human lives had been lost in the assault. "Captain," reported the communications officer, "we're receiving a transmission from the Vortac command center." The holographic image that appeared showed a Vortac commander, his chitinous armor scarred and blackened with smoke. When he spoke, his voice was filled with something that might have been respect. "Human fleet commander," the Vortac said, "I am war leader Thakfor of the Dominion. In 3 centuries of conquest, no species has ever penetrated our home system. You have achieved what we believed impossible." Vasquez stepped forward. "War leader, I am Captain Elena Vasquez of the United Earthship Vengeance. I'm here to offer you terms." "Terms?" Thakfor's mandibles clicked in what might have been amusement. "You are outnumbered 4 to 1. Your fleet is damaged and scattered. What terms could you possibly offer? Surrender now, and I'll allow your species to survive. Continue fighting, and I'll sterilize every world in your territory." The Vortac commander was silent for a long moment. Then he said, "You would commit genocide? You've committed genocide 17 times over. I'm offering you the chance to avoid joining your victims. And if we refuse?" Vasquez activated a display showing the nuclear arsenal of the human fleet. "Then your species becomes extinct in the next 24 hours. The transmission ended abruptly. The Vortac had made their choice. The final phase of the battle was not a battle at all. It was an execution. The humans had spent centuries perfecting the art of warfare, but they had also spent centuries perfecting the art of destruction. When the Vortac refused to surrender, the human fleet began the systematic annihilation of every world in the system. "Target all industrial facilities," Vasquez ordered. "I want every factory, every shipyard, every weapons manufacturing plant reduced to rubble." The bombardment began at 1,400 hours. Nuclear warheads, each one capable of destroying a city, rained down on the Vortac worlds. Plasma cannons superheated the atmosphere of entire planets. Kinetic projectiles traveling at significant fractions of the speed of light impacted with the force of small asteroids. "Captain," reported the weapons officer, "Planet 4 is showing critical seismic activity. The bombardment has destabilized the planetary core." Vasquez watched as an entire world began to tear itself apart. The bombardment had triggered massive earthquakes and volcanic eruptions that would render the planet uninhabitable for millennia. "Continue firing," she ordered. The Vortac fleet, what remained of it, made desperate attempts to stop the bombardment. But they were fighting a losing battle against an enemy that had mastered the art of destruction. Human ships, designed for this kind of warfare, systematically eliminated every threat. "Captain," came a transmission from the surface of the Vortac homeworld, "this is War Leader Thakfor. We surrender. Please, stop the bombardment." Vasquez looked at the tactical display. 7 of the 12 Vortac worlds were already beyond saving, their surfaces transformed into hellscapes of fire and molten rock. The remaining 5 were under heavy bombardment. "Too late," she said simply, and cut the transmission. The bombardment continued for 18 hours. When it was over, the Vortak home system was a graveyard. 12 worlds that had once supported a civilization capable of interstellar warfare were now uninhabitable ruins. The Vortak fleet, once the terror of the galaxy, had been reduced to scattered debris. All ships, this is Captain Vasquez. Mission accomplished. The Vortak Dominion is no longer a threat to galactic peace. The silence that followed was deafening. Every person in the human fleet understood what they had just done. They had committed genocide against an entire species. They had destroyed worlds and ended billions of lives. But they had also saved 700 billion innocent people from the same fate. The journey back to Corellian space took 5 days. During the trip, the human fleet received communications from across the galaxy. Word of the battle had spread, and the reaction was unlike anything in galactic history. Captain, reported the communications officer, were receiving messages from 47 different species. They're thanking us. The messages came from civilizations that had lived in terror of the Vortak for centuries. Species that had lost entire worlds to the Dominion's expansion. Peoples who had given up hope of ever being free from the threat of extinction. Captain Vasquez, came one message from the Altarian Republic: your actions have saved not just our worlds, but our entire way of life. The Vortak had been planning an assault on our system within the next year. We owe you a debt that can never be repaid. Similar messages came from dozens of other civilizations. The humans had not just won a battle, they had fundamentally changed the balance of power in the galaxy. But not everyone was celebrating. Captain, said Commander Mitchell, we're also receiving messages from the Galactic Peace Council. They're demanding that we face trial for war crimes. Vasquez read the message on her screen. The Peace Council, a coalition of peaceful species that governed much of the galaxy, was horrified by the complete destruction of the Vortak civilization. They saw it as an act of genocide that violated every principle of civilized warfare. They want to put us on trial, asked Colonel Rodriguez. They want to put humanity on trial, Vasquez corrected. They're saying that our actions represent a threat to galactic peace and that we're too dangerous to be allowed to continue. The irony was not lost on anyone. The humans had saved the galaxy from a species that had committed genocide multiple times over, and now they were being accused of the same crime. Captain, came a transmission from Earth, this is Admiral Webb. We've been monitoring the galactic communications. The situation is complicated. The holographic image of Admiral Webb appeared on the screen, his face showing the strain of the past few weeks. The good news is that 17 species have formally requested alliance with humanity. They want our protection against future threats. The bad news is that the Galactic Peace Council is mobilizing a fleet to contain us. Contain us? Vasquez asked. They're calling it a peacekeeping operation. They want to restrict humanity to our own solar system and prevent us from developing any further military capabilities. The bridge crew exchanged glances. After everything they had sacrificed, after saving hundreds of billions of lives, the galaxy's response was to treat them as a threat. Admiral, Vasquez said, what are our orders? Webb was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, the President has made a decision. We're not going to be contained. We're not going to be restricted. We're going to do what we've always done, we're going to survive. Sir? Captain, you're hereby ordered to establish a permanent human presence in the Corellian system. We're going to build a base, establish trade relationships, and make it clear to the galaxy that humanity is not going anywhere. The implications were staggering. Humanity was essentially declaring independence from the galactic community, choosing to forge its own path among the stars. Sir, asked Commander Park, what about the Peace Council fleet? Webb's expression hardened. If they want to fight us, they'll learn what the Vortak learned. Humanity doesn't back down from a fight. The human fleet arrived at Corellis Prime to find a system transformed. The orbital debris from the earlier battle had been cleared, and massive construction projects were underway. The Corellians, with their advanced technology and human military protection, were rebuilding faster than anyone had thought possible. Captain Vasquez, came a transmission from the surface. This is first speaker Zefkara. Welcome back to Keralis Prime. The holographic image showed the Corellian leader, but he looked different. There was a strength in his bearing that hadn't been there before, a confidence that came from having faced extinction and survived. First speaker, Vasquez replied, "It's good to be back. Captain, I want to thank you again for what you've done. Not just for our people, but for the entire galaxy." The Vorthak had been planning to attack 47 different star systems. "Your actions saved hundreds of billions of lives." "We did what was necessary," Vasquez said simply. "Yes, but at great cost to yourselves. We've been monitoring the galactic communications. The Peace Council's reaction has been disappointing." Vasquez smiled grimly. "They'll learn to adapt. The galaxy is changing, and they can either change with it or be left behind." Over the following weeks, the human fleet established a permanent base in the Corellian system. The base, designated Terra Station, became the center of human operations in the galaxy. Ships came and went, carrying diplomats, traders, and colonists to a dozen different worlds. The 17 species that had requested alliance with humanity proved to be valuable partners. They had resources, technology, and knowledge that humanity needed. In return, humanity provided something that no other species in the galaxy could offer: absolute protection from threats like the Vorthak. "Captain," reported Commander Mitchell, "we've received intelligence that the Peace Council fleet is mobilizing. They have over 2,000 ships from 30 different species." Vasquez studied the intelligence report. 2,000 ships sounded impressive, but she had seen the military capabilities of the peaceful species. Their ships were designed for exploration and trade, not warfare. Their tactics were based on negotiation and compromise, not destruction. "How long until they reach our territory?" she asked. 6 weeks, at their current speed. Vasquez nodded. 6 weeks to prepare for the next phase of humanity's expansion into the galaxy. "Mr. Park, send a message to Admiral Webb. Tell him we're going to need reinforcements." "How many, ma'am?" Vasquez looked at the tactical display, showing the vast expanse of the galaxy beyond human territory. Thousands of star systems, millions of worlds, billions of species, all of them about to learn what it meant to share the galaxy with humanity. "All of them," she said. "We're going to need the entire fleet." The message that went out to Earth was unlike anything in human history. It wasn't a request for help or a report of victory. It was a declaration of intent that would reshape the entire galaxy. "Admiral Webb," the message began, "this is Captain Vasquez reporting from Terra Station. The situation here has evolved beyond our original mission parameters. We came to save the Corellian Confederacy from the Vorthak Dominion. We succeeded in that mission, but in doing so, we've discovered that the galaxy is far more complex than we anticipated." The message continued with detailed reports of the political situation, the alliance requests, and the mobilization of the Peace Council fleet.